Our speaker this morning for the theme Broken is someone who makes art and posts it in the street, in the concrete jungle. It's really a jungle out there. She doesn't do it for the pleasure of working illegally and risking fines. She doesn't do it for the pleasure of working with glue and paper in the wind and being covered in glue at the end of a long day. She does it for a reason. And that's what she'll come and tell us today. I would like you to help me give a warm welcome to our Montreal-based, world-renowned street artist, MissMe.
Not world-renowned. Relax. My land, that's it. I'm supposed to be on this? Damn. Okay. All right. That's weird. Okay. Hi, guys. I'm going to start with the words of the great Erykah Badu. Back lady, you gon' hurt your back, carrying all them bags like that. I guess nobody ever told you all you gotta hold on to is you, is you, is you. So I'm not really going to do a speech because I'm not really a public speaker. I'm an artist, you know that. I'm very much of a loner. I do my stuff alone. So all this public stuff is new and a little weird. So this is going to be more of a storytelling time, just a little less magical, where the evil witch isn't necessarily female and where the hero not necessarily male. I'm going to tell you the story of how I got broken. And this is by far the hardest talk I have ever done because it is by far the most intimate. So bear with me. Now, there are many ways one can break. By many, many, many small little hits that finally crack an entire structure over time, or one big blow that smashes everything. In my case, it was a combination of both. A bunch of small little hits and one final big blow. I remember my first little hit like it was yesterday. I was 13 years old. Every year, my family and I would go break the fast of Yom Kippur at my father's friend's family. If you don't know what that is, you just think of it as a giant Thanksgiving dinner with all the families of the community that gather around in one big house. It's a big deal. Back in those days, we, and really most people, didn't buy that many clothes. It's not like today where people have a ton of clothes. And so my brother and I had one good outfit a year for all of our formal occasions. And that year I had grown a little more. So my mother decided to loosen my jacket and put some length on my skirt because that year was a little black jacket and a black skirt. So she added some length and loosened the jacket so I could continue wearing it for the rest of the year. So off we went, my family and I, to that big deal of a supper. I never really liked going there because I always felt out of place. Everybody was super fancy, and all the kids looked way cooler than us. But anyway, like every year, the hours passed, and we get to go home, and I'm relieved, like every year. Except that year, my mother comes up to my room with an expression on her face that I didn't recognize. And she sits me down and tells me, Bianca, which was the host of this whole thing, Bianca came to me and told me that if you didn't learn to dress appropriately, you would no longer be welcome in her house. I had no idea what she meant. I had no idea what just happened, and I had no idea how to fix it. I was wearing the outfit my mother had bought for me and fixed for me. I wanted to cry. I wanted to disappear. She didn't even defend me. She just passed on her shame onto me. And that's what I felt. I felt shame. And that day, I learned that I had to change myself because of the behavior of others. That my growing woman's body was going to be very heavy to carry. Anyway, that's the first little hit that I remember clearly. That first clear one that established that fucked up idea that I was necessarily held responsible for other people's behaviors towards me, even when I did nothing. And these little harmless situations continued like they do through a girl's life. But then a couple years ago, the big blow. I got sexually assaulted. And that, like it usually does, blew me into a million pieces. I felt that same shame, deep and rooted inside me, but a million times stronger. And again, I looked into myself for the responsibility of someone else's actions towards me. I still remember waking up in the morning like I was no one. No more familiar thoughts, no more familiar feelings. I was completely blank. I was like a newborn in my own body. I didn't recognize my surroundings. I didn't recognize my own image. It was fucking sci-fi. But then that was also a state of full consciousness. I had never been more present because I couldn't relate to my past anymore, and I had no vision of any future. My pieces had been scattered so much that I had been stripped to my very core. And that is much less than you think it is. What makes you, you, is so much less than what you think it is. That place is deep, that place is dark, but that is also where I met myself. That little spark, that little essence that is truly me. And upon that meeting, I decided, fuck this. Fuck this. I actually like myself. I'm not gonna let him win, and I'm still alive, so fuck this. Because that's the real danger of shame. It is a powerful, paralyzing, self-negating force. So I decided to turn that force outwards, to turn shame into anger, and to turn anger into change. I went from destroying myself to building myself. Because all of our emotions are a form of energy. Society has a tendency of portraying emotional people as weak, but I say bullshit. Because if you manage to catalyze all of your emotion, all of these emotions and feelings, you can turn them into amazing power. And so this process took the form of a visceral need to speak out, to stand for myself, to stop apologizing for my opinions, for myself, for who I was. I was basically rebuilding myself guts out. Guts out. And I used the tools I had and I knew, so I drew, I painted, and I did so to heal my relationship with society. I felt I was being louder. I felt I was screaming louder by doing it. And I'm a girl that needs to scream. So my work really touches a lot of different things. some serious, some less, from my taste in music to my opinions about gender equality to, my perspective on certain things in history. Not all things I do are super serious. But when it comes to these ladies right here, this is the portrait of a Vandal. And she's my soldier. They are. There's a bunch of different versions of them. And they're really my answer to my own struggle as a woman and my vision of myself in society. And also, let's let this truck pass. All right. And also, it's also an answer to being constantly taking down Instagram and Facebook constantly for the shadow of a nipple when you can just put the most violent and hate speech and everything out there, and that's fine. Anyway, that's the kind of stuff that really, really I take personal. So what I did is I drew everything that they kept putting down on the internet, and I put it everywhere in the street and be like, yeah, take me down now, bitch. Sorry, anyway. Because to be born with a woman's body is to bear the unsolicited burden of society's unresolved attitude towards sex. We are told to be ashamed of our sexuality and to apologize for the power of her body. She's not sexual, she's just naked. She's not vulgar, she's not any of that, she's just there. And if you see it to be sexual, you're projecting. It's not her, it's you. Because sexuality is an intention, it is not a state of boobs. Because vulgarity is an energy, it is not a state of ass. But all of these ladies are my own answer to all of this. I don't pretend to speak for women in general. I would never do that because there's a million ways to really be a woman, and there's a million answers to a million struggles. As we strive to be more empowered and sexually liberated, I think it's very important not to champion one way of liberating oneself and impose it on others, because once you do that, your liberation becomes oppression. And so I only speak for myself. Everybody will get broken. A little, a lot, by many, many, many little hits that will crack an entire structure over time, or one big blow. And I think what matters is not whether it will happen or how it will happen or who or why, because that shit will hit. And there's no way to fully prepare for what will happen. What matters is how one deals with the rawness of that reality, how one faces its essence, and what one does to rebuild the dopest, coolest new version of oneself. Now, I must admit, I really hesitated into sharing that story because the way society works today is that it loves labels and it's really hungry for drama, and it usually searches for drama in order to put a label on you. And I hate both things because I am not defined by this event, and this story is not about drama. I don't believe we're one static entity that we must protect. I believe we're an endless, moving energy that transforms itself into different versions of our deep selves. And once you see it like that, you realize you had many lives, and you still have many others to build and to live and to meet. And I find that less scary, and I find that actually a little exciting. I actually lied. This wasn't a story about how I got broken. This was a story of how I built myself. Thank you.
Thank you, MissMe. Merci à tous de l'attention exceptionnelle que vous avez donnée à MissMe. Je pense que c'est un talk important pour Montréal, pour Creative Mornings, pour MissMe. Merci à tous d'avoir été là. Merci d'être venus inaugurer ce lieu. Merci d'apporter votre énergie positive dans cet univers. Merci d'être qui vous êtes.